Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Tyler Snow, and we're going to do scriptures on a whiteboard, conversation about the seed. So, last few weeks, I've been thinking a little bit about the concept of a seed in the scriptures. In a number of different places, it talks about seeds and seeds growing and seeds of faith and seed is mustard or faith is a mustard seed, that type of thing. Um, a few reflections about what a seed is and how it comes into being. So we have a seed that's planted into the ground. A couple of things about just this process all by itself. A seed is planted into the ground through effort. There's some type of effort that has to happen, whether it's happenstance, it just happens to float by, or there's a very direct, deliberate planting the seed in there, a hole dug, water given, sunlight given, that type of thing. Regardless of how the seed gets there, over time the seed can start to grow. It starts to produce roots, it starts to shoot up towards the surface of the ground, and then over time we start to see a little sprig of something happen. We see leaves start to grow, the roots continue to grow down below. Now the success of this seed is dependent on a few different things. Obviously we need good soil. In addition to good soil, we need good nutrition, water, and then sunlight for the seed to be able to take root and then grow up to whatever it needs to be. A big tree, a stalk of corn, whatever the case may be, the seed needs those basic requirements of sun, food, good soil, and some nurturing care to be able to have it grow up the way that it needs to. Now, for a moment, let's just picture ourselves as a seed. So we're planted in a place, right? It's dark, we can't see what's going on, unsure of what's going on, what we're supposed to do. We understand that we're supposed to grow and to develop. Now, what's interesting to me about this is that this is kind of what our life is like, right? We're put on this earth. When we're born into this earth, we don't understand what it is we're supposed to be doing. We're taught and told and instructed by family, by those around us, sometimes for bad, hopefully for the good. And we start to understand that we're growing for a purpose. Now, consider also the effort as we begin to grow of literally pushing earth aside as we try to shoot our roots down and then as we try to shoot our stems up towards the sun. A tremendous amount of effort. And again, not really fully understanding why we're shooting the stem up and our roots down, but we know that we're supposed to. We feel a draw, a pull for that to start to happen. Now, as this starts to happen in this process right here, that's a tremendous process for a small plant to push the earth aside, to push the soil aside. Tremendous amount of effort that needs to take place for that to happen. Now, once that plant starts to break the earth, it has the benefit of the sunlight. But even before that, the seed understood, for lack of perhaps a shorter term, that it needed to shoot its stem up towards the surface of the earth for it to start to get that sun the way that it was supposed to. In a very real way, this is how faith works, is that we're stuck in this place that may feel dark and alone to us. We don't understand why it's so difficult to have to push through. We understand, hopefully on some level or basis, that in order for us to get to something more meaningful, that we've got to push through. We've got to go through the challenges and the trials and the difficulty to get to the point where we can feel that sun more consistently. Now, this is a simple illustration of a seed in our personal lives. This also works on a lot of organizational levels. Recently, I had the opportunity to listen to a biography about George Washington. A story, at least the high points of the story that we're familiar with, how our nation came into being and some of the things that our nation had to go through. The idea of liberty was a seed planted, and that seed started to grow. Interesting too is that as this starts to grow into something bigger, like a tree, what happens is that the tree starts to produce those seeds. And so the seed falls from the tree into the ground, and then that process starts over and over again. So as the American colonists began to experience life under this monarchical rule of England decided that they wanted something different, right? And so few people started to speak out and to organize. And then their tree was growing up, and as their tree started to grow, seeds from that tree started to grow, and that same um, demand, that same desire for liberty started to grow up as well. And so the same process happens over and over again, right? So we've got a plant that starts to grow up, it grows up into a tree, and then that tree gives a seed, and not just one seed, but it gives many, 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 many seeds over and over and over again. So as time goes on, this one little seed grows into one tree, and then a bunch of trees, and then an orchard of trees, and then a forest of trees. But this all starts with this process of having to push through a dark place, a place of difficulty, a place of trial, a place of tribulation, a crucible of effort. In the case of the early Americans, this was a process that was purchased with blood and life and a tremendous amount of difficulty. And when the Revolutionary War was over, the work wasn't done. We were still in this fledgling process. But this same pattern exists over and over and over and over again throughout the history of time, and also in our own lives, where we start with something small. Think about a meeting or an experience you've ever had where something hits you powerfully, and you feel something inside that says this is a good thing. And then we nurture that experience, and that experience starts to grow into something. And over time, that grows into something even bigger. This experience that we have of that moment where that hits us powerfully is meant to grow into something bigger, that's meant to change us, but not only to change us, but it starts to change other people as well. The interesting thing I think about this concept is that this is taught to us to an extent in the New Testament. Christ teaches us that we should be the light and that our light should shine to the world. This is the same type of idea, right? Where we've got just a little spark of light that starts to grow within us, and it grows into something else, and then it grows into a tree or a larger light or whatever metaphor you want to use, and then that is shared with somebody else, and then their light starts to grow. So just as this seed hit you at some moment in time, you have the opportunity to share those experiences with other people, and then that's planted into somebody else, and then they plant it into somebody else. And so over time, we've got this little tiny seed that gives way for other seeds to start to grow. And then from those seeds, we have other seeds that start to grow, and then other seeds that start to grow, and so on and so forth, from just one little experience that starts to happen. And again, we see this happen over and over again, whether it's in history as we look back, in secular history, or religious history, or even the way that God operates. Think about God placing Adam and Eve on the planet, right? Two individuals who are planted, again, maybe for lack of a shorter term, on this earth, and then they start to grow. And then they grow, and then they grow. And this is a very real reason why we call this a family tree, right? Two people give birth to an entire population. And not only Adam and Eve, but again with Noah. At any time any explorer or colonizer goes to a new area, you start small and then it starts to grow out from there, bigger and bigger and bigger. But always, always, always at the beginning we have this experience of difficulty and trial and pain as we try to push through this darkness to an extent. Now we hope that we get to the point where we start to feel some of that sunshine, that we can absorb that light, the goodness, the hope, the peace that maybe comes through this. And we get to a point in ourselves, hopefully, where this feels comfortable. As a big tree, we're not pushed around by any little windstorm that comes around. A little windstorm might have a big effect on what's going on here, but for a big tree, the leaves, the branches are easily able to absorb small storms. And even big storms that may take a branch off here or there, a big tree is able to absorb that and continue to survive. Sometimes in these fledgling states, when we have those big storms of life that come onto us, this is not able to be sustained during a big storm. And so protection and nurturing these little seeds are so important as they start to grow into something bigger and stronger, or more sustainable and more flexible and more resilient when it comes to the difficulties of life. But as you get to this point, that it's not just those, but that you're also starting to plant other seeds and sharing what you have with other people, and then it grows and grows and grows. And this seems to be a consistent pattern that our Heavenly Father uses, that Christ used, that the gospel uses. You think of any dispensation throughout the history of time, it always starts with one or two or a few people, whether it's Moses or whether it's Abraham or whether it's Peter, who start off small in this fledgling status but become a great and a glorious tree that grows and is shared and perpetuates over time. And this is a great pattern to look for, that if something comes from God, then it has this capacity to continue to perpetuate itself, and should and is expected to over time. And this is, to me, an example of our Heavenly Father's love for us. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and hope you continue to watch the videos and subscribe, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.